ASMR reading and video in general. So today we're going to be reading a book called Dead Space Martyr. This takes place before Dead Space 1. It takes place I think a few hundred years actually. This has to do with them discovering the very first marker on Earth. Pretty much the very first marker mankind ever comes in contact with too. So, I don't actually have the physical book, but I do have a PDF of it. So, if you do hear my mouse scrolling, then I am completely sorry. I also want to say that I can't really read too well. I read better in my head, and when I speak it out loud, I generally tend to mess up my words. I'm pretty sure I have mild dyslexia, or I'm just fucking stupid. So, either way, I'm completely sorry. So, if my mess-ups get to be too much, then, please, beat me up or something. So, Chapter 1 is called Puerto Chicxulub. This is going to be kind of like a mixture of ASMR and soft-spoken in general. So, hopefully this fits your fancy. Java woke up early than usual that day. Just before the sun rose, his mother and his sister were still asleep. His father was gone, traveling again. When the boy asked him where he went, he was always evasive. And then Java had learned to not ask further. He took a ladle full of water from the bucket to drink it. Careful not to wake his sister, he poured another into the basin and washed his face and hands and arms before quietly slopping the rest onto the dirt floor. He was still sleepy. He watched his sister move restlessly, giving a little moan. Why had he waken up so early? He had been in the middle of a frightening dream. There was something chasing him, a strange, stumbling creature, something that moved and lurches and starts, something that seemed at once alive and dead. He shook his head, wondering how something could be both alive and dead. He slipped into his clothing and left the shack, careful to stop the piece of aluminum that served as a makeshift door from clanking behind him. Outside he could smell the salt in the air, could see a few hundred meters away the slate gray waves. The tide was out, the waves gentle now, hard to hear from this distance. Something lingered in his head, a noise, a strange sound, whispering, whatnot. It was saying words, but not in a language he could understand, so softly that he couldn't even tell where one word stopped and another started. He tried to force the sound out, but though it receded, it didn't go away. It just hid itself somewhere deep in the back of his skull, nagging at him. His dream rushed forward to fill the space. The creature had been large, just a little bigger than a man. He was watching it from behind in the dream. At first he thought it was a man, but when it started, he saw it was missing part of its face, the jaw. There was something wrong with his arms as well, but the dream was blurry and he couldn't make out what it was exactly. It watched him with eyes as blank and inhuman as the eyes of a fish, and then, in a single bound hissing, it had been on him, its slathering half-jaw, trying to sink broken teeth into his throat. He was wandering, not really aware of where he was going, trying to find out the bits of dream playing out in his subconscious mind. He was surprised to find himself down at the shoreline. To the left of the coast was empty. Down the coast to his right, far in the distance, were 2 or 3 fishermen standing in the surf, trying to pull something in. Whatever it was, the boy knew would almost certainly be deformed and taste of oil. It would be a challenge to choke down. It was no longer safe to fish. The sea air was polluted and starting to die, and similar problems were working their way inland as well. He'd heard his father talking angry about it. The crops even a few years back then had been healthy and strong, now came up stunted as they grew. The only supposedly safe food was patented food that had been grown in controlled environments by mega corporations, food that the few could afford. So the choice his father was either to eat food that would slowly kill you or go broke on food you couldn't afford, while everyone went on destroying the world. He started walking toward the fisherman, but something hindered his steps. Slowly turning him, he began moving down the beach something rolling in the surf. A fish, maybe, he thought at first, but as he walked forward it seemed too large to be a fish, and the shape was wrong. A corpse, maybe, a drowned man. But when it flopped back and forth in the tide, he knew he was wrong. That it was wrong. The hair started to stand in the back of Shava's neck. He walked toward the thing, trying not to listen to the rising cacophony of whispers taking over his head. I guess that was chapter 1. Huh. Alright, well, chapter 2 doesn't have a title name, it just says 2. So, chapter 2. Michael Altman rubbed his eyes and looked away from his hollow screen. He was a tall man in his early 40s with dark hair, just going a little gray at the temples, and lively blue-green eyes. Normally, he had a keenly intelligent gaze, but today his face was a little drawn, a little wary. He hadn't slept well. The night before, he had had bad dreams. Visceral stuff, all blood, gore, death. Nothing he wanted to remember. That's odd, said James Field, the geophysicist whose lab he shared. Field ran stubby fingers through his thinning white hair and leaned back, his chair creaking beneath him, as he stared across the room at Altman. Altman, did you get these same readings? What readings? Altman asked. Field spun a copy of his holoscreen Altman's way. It showed a Boger-Slovo gravity map of the 110-mile diameter of Chicxulub crater. The crater had been left when a 10-kilometer biolude had struck the Earth's surface 655 million years ago. Hey, that's about when the dinosaurs died out. James Field, now in his late 50s, had spent most of his career micromapping the crater for the state-owned Central American Sector Resource Corporation, CASRC. He focused mainly inland along the perimeter of the trough, where small condensations of key minerals might be found and quickly extracted. Some people had already been doing the same hundreds of years ago. This mainly meant going back for quantities small enough that earlier teams before the resource crisis had deemed them unworthy of retrieval. It was slow, tedious work, as close to being an accountant as you could get and still be a geothermicist. Altman, on the other hand, had been in Chicxulub only a year. His girlfriend, Ada Chavez, an anthropologist, had gotten funding to study the role of Yakati Mayan folktales and myths. He managed to pull just enough strings and call in enough favors to get a small grant so he could follow her to Mexico. He was supposed to be profiling the underwater portion of the crater, providing a map of likely geological structures beneath half the mile or so of sea muck by gathering data from both satellite images and underwater probes. It was, in theory, a strictly scientific project, but he knew that whatever information he gathered, the university would sell it to an extraction company. He tried not to think about it. The work was slow and not very rewarding, but he tried to tell himself that it wasn't quite as pointless as what Field was doing. He looked at Field's holoscreen carefully. It looked normal to him. The gravity reading's typical. What am I looking for? Field furrowed his brow. I forgot you were new, he said. I'll zoom in on the center. The center of the crater was deep in the water, about half a dozen miles from their laboratory. Altman leaned forward towards the monitor and squinted. A darkness at the heart of the crater revealed a gravitational anomaly. Here's what it looked like a month ago, said Field. See? He flashed up another profile, and the darkness in the center wasn't there. Altman saw. He checked the first profile, the readings everywhere, but the crater were the same. How's that possible? It doesn't make sense, does it? Said Field. It wouldn't just change like that. Probably just An equipment malfunction, said Altman. I've been working here a long time. I know an equipment failure when I see one. This isn't one. The anomaly appears both on the satellite images and the underwater scans, so it can't be. But how could it change? Asked Altman. Maybe a volcanic eruption. Field shook his head. That wouldn't give this sort of anomaly. Plus, the other instruments would have sensed it. I can't explain it. There's something wrong, he said, already reaching for his phone.